After 50, life is no longer about how far you run, but how steady you cross the bridge that remains.
After 50, every single day is not just precious, it has the power to shape the entire rest of your life. This is no longer the time to drift through or chase meaningless pursuits. It is the moment when wise men pause to look within, change the way they live, and focus only on what truly matters. I do not claim to have all the answers, but after years of experience, failures, and watching countless other men, I have discovered 7 truths that can transform the second half of life into something stronger, deeper, and far more fulfilling. And you are watching Next Chapter 50, where the second half of life becomes a brand new beginning. After turning 50, one of the most significant and powerful changes a wise man learns is to stop pretending. After living half a lifetime, you realize that wearing masks just to please others only leaves you drained. For years, you may have tried to say what people wanted to hear, acted like the person society expected you to be, or forced yourself to play the good guy just to keep the peace. But the truth is that the relationships, respect, and recognition you gain from that kind of pretending have no real value. When you live in a way that doesn't align with who you truly are, you lose yourself and never find peace. Men over 50 understand that real success does not come from being liked for a false image, but from living in alignment with their true selves. Of course, you still need to adjust, depending on the context. You cannot act at work exactly the same way you do with your closest friends, but that adjustment is only adaptation, not the loss of your essence. When a man chooses to live fully as his authentic self, the respect he receives becomes lasting and inner peace becomes real. This is the very first and essential step to making the second half of life meaningful. No longer wasting energy on things that don't matter, no longer pouring potential into empty illusions, and no longer forcing yourself to hide behind exhausting masks. At the threshold of 50, a wise man realizes that clinging to the past only makes life heavier, while renewing himself is the key to opening a more meaningful chapter ahead. Change rarely comes from perfect planning. It often arises from sudden upheavals, painful losses, or challenges that seem impossible to overcome. It might be a career that no longer looks the same, a relationship that ends, health showing signs of decline, or simply a world moving faster than expected. All of these force a man to face the truth that he cannot keep defining himself by outdated roles or old labels. Reinvention means stepping out of the comfort zone to rediscover the truth within, not becoming someone else, but a more authentic and deeper version of himself. It is not a race to chase youth, not an attempt to prove he is still the same, but a conscious choice to live in harmony with the present and with his true values. When he dares to release what is outdated and no longer serves him, he opens the door to live in alignment with his desires and potential. That is when reinvention becomes power, turning 50 not into an ending, but into a milestone for a new beginning, where maturity and inner freedom guide every step forward. If you enjoyed this video, press subscribe. If not, press like. One of the most powerful realizations a man can have after 50 is refusing to accept declining health as just a normal and unavoidable part of aging. Too many people write off their aches, fatigue, or weakening strength as if time alone were the cause, when in reality much of it comes from years of neglect and poor habits finally catching up. There is a clear difference between the natural process of aging and the consequences of choices made over decades, and smart men learn to tell them apart. You do not have to be an extreme fitness enthusiast or live in the gym to age well, but you do have to stop pretending your body can handle the same abuse it did at 20. Health is not about chasing perfect physiques or six-pack abs. It is about maintaining function, energy, and vitality so you can fully live the second half of life. That means making movement a consistent part of your days, choosing real food most of the time, being mindful of sleep and stress, and refusing to wait for a health scare before changing course. The occasional indulgence is not the problem. What matters is the pattern you create for yourself. Successful men over 50 understand that small, consistent actions shape their quality of life far more than sporadic bursts of effort. They choose to take care of their bodies not out of vanity, but because they know strength, mobility, and resilience are the foundation for everything else they still want to experience. By owning responsibility for their health, they refuse to slowly deteriorate and instead claim the right to age with dignity, capability, and purpose. This mindset shift is not about fighting age, but about living fully, ensuring that the years ahead are marked not by decline but by vitality and presence. One of the greatest shifts a man can make after 50 is learning how to take responsibility for his actions without turning that responsibility into endless self-punishment. Every human being makes mistakes, some small, and some that may have left deep marks on our lives or the lives of others. But the truth is that carrying guilt forever does not undo the past. What separates men who grow from men who remain stuck is the ability to acknowledge a wrong, accept ownership, extract the lesson, and then move forward with clarity. Responsibility is about saying, yes, that was on me. But it is not about replaying the memory endlessly, as if suffering longer somehow pays a moral debt. Constant self-punishment does not make you noble. It only keeps you trapped in regret and robs you of the chance to live fully in the present. At this stage of life, time is too valuable to waste on cycles of shame. Smart men understand that the most respectful thing they can do with their mistakes is to use them as fuel for wiser choices, better relationships, and deeper compassion for others. They refuse to shrink themselves or carry an identity built entirely around what went wrong years ago. Instead, they use accountability as a tool for growth, not as a weapon against themselves. This approach allows them to remain strong and steady, modeling to those around them what it looks like to fall, get up, and move forward with dignity. Taking responsibility is a mark of strength, but confusing responsibility with punishment is a trap. By releasing the need to endlessly suffer, men over 50 free themselves to live the remainder of their lives, not weighed down by guilt, but guided by wisdom, resilience, and the courage to begin again whenever necessary. Don't just watch, take part. Like this video and comment one word that describes how you feel right now. A defining trait of men who thrive after 50 is that they stop passively waiting for life to get better and instead take ownership of the direction they can control. They no longer waste energy clinging to the fantasy that circumstances will magically shift or that someone else will come along to save them. Life is not fair, and at this stage, most men have seen enough hardship to understand that truth deeply. Some people are handed advantages, others face setbacks they never deserved, and sometimes the outcomes simply do not match the effort invested. Accepting this reality is not weakness, it is clarity. And from that clarity comes the strength to focus on what can actually be changed. You cannot alter the past, you cannot dictate the actions of other people, and you cannot control the global economy. But you can influence your daily choices, your mindset, and the standards you hold yourself to. Men who understand this principle refuse to give away their power by waiting for permission or rescue. They learn that even the smallest step forward, taken consistently, shifts the trajectory of their lives. Every action becomes a statement that they will not surrender to circumstances, but instead will create opportunities where none seem to exist. This proactive mindset separates those who grow from those who stay stagnant. By choosing action over passivity, men build resilience, confidence, and a sense of agency that carries them through unpredictable times. It is not about controlling everything, but about refusing to give up control over the things that are within reach. The man who stops waiting becomes the man who shapes his own second half of life, guided by intention and not by resignation. In this way, he transforms unfairness from a burden into a backdrop, and his choices, not his circumstances, define the quality of the years ahead. A powerful realization that comes in the second half of life is the need to live in alignment with what truly matters, rather than pursuing hollow objectives that impress others but leave you feeling empty. After turning 50, men often lose patience for superficial ambitions or external recognition that once seemed important but now appear meaningless. The focus shifts toward clarity, integrity, and a deep connection to core values. This transformation requires self-honesty and the courage to release old identities and goals that no longer fit the person you have become. Living according to what matters means asking yourself why you are pursuing certain paths, whether in career, relationships, or even in the simple choices that shape daily life. Without this clarity, it is easy to drift, wasting years on distractions and then wondering how so much time slipped away without fulfillment. Men who flourish past 50 anchor themselves in their principles, allowing those principles to guide their decisions consistently. They realize that a dramatic life purpose is not necessary. What is needed is a strong and genuine reason that gives direction and meaning. That inner compass becomes the source of strength to say no to anything that leads them astray. Saying no stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like freedom because it clears space for saying yes to the essentials. With this mindset, even ordinary days feel significant, while empty victories lose their allure. By staying true to what genuinely matters, men create a life marked not by the approval of others, but by an inner sense of fulfillment. This commitment gives richness to every moment and ensures that the years ahead are not wasted on trivial pursuits, but devoted to values that bring real depth and purpose. If this spoke to you, share it with a friend. Comment their initials below. As the years pass and life moves into the later decades, the men who continue to grow and thrive are not those who stubbornly resist change, but those who learn the art of adaptation. A rigid mindset, one that clings desperately to how things used to be, becomes a heavy chain that prevents forward movement. At 50 and beyond, many men are tempted to dwell on the past, to replay memories of what once was, and to wish for the return of an earlier time when youth, strength, or opportunities seemed endless. Yet holding on to such illusions creates frustration and disappointment because the past is gone and no amount of longing can bring it back. The truth is that life will continue to shift whether we like it or not. Health will change, relationships will evolve, careers may take unexpected turns, and the world itself will transform in ways we cannot control. The difference between those who suffer and those who flourish lies in their ability to bend without breaking, to adjust their perspective, and to see change not as a threat, but as a chance to reinvent and renew. Adaptability is often misunderstood as weakness, as if being flexible means surrendering, but in reality, it is a profound source of strength. When a man chooses to adapt, he is not giving up his identity. He is choosing to remain relevant to himself and to the life he still has ahead. By embracing adaptability, he develops resilience and creativity, finding new ways to solve problems, enjoy experiences, and pursue meaning. Instead of trying to force life back into an old shape, he learns to flow with the present moment and use it as raw material for building the future. This mindset does not erase the longing for what once was, but it prevents that longing from dictating his choices. Men who master adaptation discover that flexibility protects them from bitterness, keeps them open to opportunities, and allows them to maintain dignity in the face of uncertainty. They stop treating change as an enemy and start treating it as a companion, sometimes unwelcome but always offering lessons. In this way, adaptability becomes a shield against despair and a tool for continued growth. It transforms the challenges of aging into invitations to deepen wisdom, strengthen inner freedom, and explore paths that might never have been visible without change forcing the shift. By seeing adaptability as power rather than weakness, men ensure that the second half of life is not defined by decline, but by the capacity to evolve and to keep shaping their lives with purpose, courage, and authenticity. In conclusion, the 7 points we have just explored are the foundations that help men after 50 make the second half of life more meaningful and fulfilling. These are not simple tips or empty slogans, but lessons drawn from reality, from mistakes, from losses, and from the painful experiences that all of us eventually encounter. At this stage of life, what matters most is not clinging to what has passed or trying to prove to the world that you are still the same, but learning to live authentically, daring to reinvent yourself, taking proactive care of your health, accepting responsibility without self-punishment, refusing to sit back and wait for miracles to fix your life, staying true to your core values, and finally, becoming more adaptable to change. When you stop pretending just to be accepted, you discover genuine peace. When you let go of outdated labels, you uncover a more honest and deeper version of yourself. When you refuse to accept declining health as inevitable, you create a physical foundation that allows you to fully experience each day. When you learn to take responsibility without endless guilt, you free yourself from the weight of shame and open the door to real growth. When you stop passively hoping life will get better, you reclaim your power and take control of your own path. When you clarify what truly matters, you stop wasting years chasing meaningless goals and learn to say no to distractions. And when you become more flexible in the face of change, life cannot break you because you use change itself as fuel for progress. Together, these shifts allow men in the second half of life not just to survive, but to truly live. to live with peace, inner freedom, and the confidence that each day they are walking the right path. And if you found these insights valuable, I invite you to join me in the next video, where we will confront the hidden traps that so often keep men stuck after 50 and discover how to rise above them and move forward with greater strength than ever before. Hit subscribe if you want more content like this. Comment more if you're ready for the next one.